Delaying intervening with a good program has huge social and academic costs for students that are struggling. They cannot read the material that the students are having in the class. They can't write answers to the questions that they need to in their academic program, and socially they can often become withdrawn or lack confidence to engage in the classroom program. So it's not only the social cost of delaying an intervention, there's also an economic cost to both the school themselves, the cost for intervening and providing the program for the student, but also for the community at large. When you start having large numbers of students leaving school, they are unable to read and write enough to win a job. With rainbow reading, the students hear the story read at the correct pace and read fluently. This provides a model for them to copy fluent reading and to read at the right pace.
Rainbow reading. What, how, when and where. We recommend a small group of between 4 to 6 pupils at a time. Because this is an individualised but small group intervention, each pupil reads his or her own book with his or her own audio support and moves at a pace that best suits him or her. So you can see we're talking a personal audio player, a CD, a Discman, or an MP3 player, rather than a listening centre. I believe you can get progress with pupils all reading the same book, but the problem with that, of course, is we're not accelerating progress. All pupils are having the same amount of practice when one may need fewer than another. We recommend you aim for 4 or 5 days a week, knowing that at least once a week something will probably get in the way. But if you aim for 3, you're not going to get 3, and you definitely need 3 practice sessions a week. 20 to 30 minutes in each session per day, and it can be in or out of the class. Most interventions seem to prefer temporarily withdrawing the pupils from the class for a 20-minute session and then going back into the class. The procedure goes something like this. You start off by establishing the pupils' reading level, because we want them to work at a level which is at their instructional reading level, 90 to 94, 95% accuracy. You can use whichever procedure you're already using in the classroom to establish a reading level, or you can use rainbow reading, which has running records for every single text. An orientation takes 3 or 4 minutes, in much the same way as it does in a guided reading lesson. You talk about the title, the illustrations, what might happen, set the pupils up to be interested in what's coming in the book. Then you send them off to practice listening to the audio and following along with the book, and they have as many practices with the audio until they believe they can read the book well by themselves. We're aiming for this instructional reading level to become easy. Some pupils may need 3 practices. When they have had several practices and they think they're ready to move on, they have an independent read of the book with no audience and no audio support. And this is so they can confirm in their minds that they are ready to move on. Now, to be able to move on, they have to read easily, above 95% accuracy. They have to have good understanding, and they have to have good expression, good pace and phrasing. If this independent practice does not go well, they go back for more practice. And there are also some activities they may be able to do. If the practice does go well, they request a conference with their tutor, we'll call them, because it can be a teacher or a teacher assistant. The teacher assistant, the tutor, is also checking that the pupil is reading well. In the first couple of seconds, if it does not appear they are reading up to standard, they're sent back for more practice. If it does go well, the cycle starts again. Now, on average, remember every pupil's an individual, and that's why they're on an individual program. On average, they seem to be needing 12 to 15 books from a set of 20. Some may need fewer, and some may need more. In the interests of acceleration, they have just as much practice as they need before they're ready to move on. And remember from the graphs, on average, the pupils are moving on a level or a year in every 9 to 10 weeks. There are 7 levels in the Rainbow Reading Program, starting at the 5.5 to 6 year reading level, our white level, 20 books in each level, and we go through to the 11 to 12 year reading level. Although these books are at very low reading levels, they are of interest to older pupils. We recognise that pupils' interest levels far exceed what their reading levels are. So they're books of interest to them, but they'll be at their instructional reading level. So bring them up to speed with their reading, up to expected levels for their age with Rainbow Reading, and then hook them into reading and keep them interested with Toxic. Toxic is a series of 20 books using the same proven formula as Rainbow Reading, little 8-page books with the CD support. Content of Toxic books are a little risque. They are humorous and they feature horrifying habits of various animals, details of how they make certain smells and why they vomit. The books in Toxic are loosely levelled at the 7 to 10 year reading level. Less emphasis on reading level with these because they're for the reluctant reader. And with the CD support, we're not concerned which book they choose to start reading in this series. We have the same activities as are available in the Rainbow Reading Program, with an extra activity which is called a make and do activity, and it provides a need to read instructions. Toxic is really popular. It was designed for the boys, but we know that the girls love it as well.
When we looked at material for motivating students to read who perhaps weren't engaged in the reading process, we decided to use material that was a little risque in its content. To make sure that this material wasn't going to emotionally or psychologically damage children, we had it reviewed by a number of senior psychologists in New Zealand. The way I look at it, it allowed these students to get engaged in reading, and it allowed the teacher and peers to discuss with them some topics that were of interest to them, and often what they discussed with their peers. Having these topics allows both the teacher, the peer and their parents to discuss these topics which they may not normally be able to discuss with them. A lot of material that students pick up in computer games or on television is often not discussed with adults at all, and many times adults are not even aware that they're seeing it. With this material, it allows the student to read about important things that are happening in their community and will allow the teacher to become engaged in that discussion.